Okay, this comment is just too juicy not to answer. This is from JBLLJN. It says, how could anything be concluded at all, in fact? There's just stuff appearing to happen. How can anything be concluded? Including statements such as, there is no separation in existence, there is no self, etc. Couldn't even awakening / no self-realization just be more of the same thing? There being no sense of self and the revelation of non-duality could just be an appearance, just as much as the illusion of self was. Couldn't the truth be that there actually is separation in existence and the absence of the self is illusory? How could you know? I see a lot of non-duality speakers say things like, I don't actually know any of this that I'm talking about. It's all coming from nothing, the absolute. There's just no doubt about it. Bro, what? Couldn't that just be false then? Couldn't that lack of doubt just be bullshiz? You can say bullshit, it's okay. And then the next part is, just because there's no doubt about these things you're saying doesn't make it true. So these insights, responses to questions about non-duality arise from your deep intuition. There's no doubt about it. And so your brain just trusts it and goes with it, saying it as if it's absolute truth. What if it's not? Just because there's no mind doubting what's being said or perceived doesn't mean that it's true. Question mark, question mark, question mark. There's a lot of extra punctuation here, just so you know. So it's very excited language. And then it says, I feel like I'm going crazy. This stuff is pissing me off. This is all my doubt speaking, I know, LOL, but I don't know, with laughy faces. So first of all, I totally understand this. What I perceive from this is you have a very discerning mind, right? You have a sharp mind, logical mind, no doubt, right? You're probably really good at sort of discernment, scientific kind of discernment. You have a good bullshit detector probably and all that. And that's great. Really, really good to move through life with. So that's a huge benefit to you. But guess what? It's not a benefit here. It's a bit of a detriment when it comes to awakening. So I have different ways I can answer this for you, but the simplest thing I can say is your instinct is right, actually. This is doubt. This is a lot of doubt, right? And some of your questions have a lot of merit as far as questioning what people are telling you and not wholesale accepting what they're telling you, right? And I agree with that strategy, actually. I say it in my book and I say it on videos, don't take my word for this. I never want you to take my word for it. I don't want you to believe a damn thing I say. I don't want you to believe that I say there is no separation. I don't want you to believe if I say that you're never going to find a self anywhere. I don't want you to believe that stuff. If I say it, I'm using that language as a tool to point you to a deeper insight. What I can tell you is that the cure for what you want to be cured isn't in discernment. It's not in more doubt, right? Using doubt to dispel doubt is like using gasoline to put out a fire. It just doesn't work, right? So is that frustrating? Yeah, of course it's frustrating. And that leads me to the good news, which is that when you're feeling pissed off, that's good, right? You're not pissed off because you don't have the answers to these questions. You're pissed off because your identity barrier is starting to be threatened. That's what I think is happening. And I know that from experience. So the anger coming up in your body, that's where I want you to go. I want you to go there if you're interested in awakening. This isn't really about you being sharp enough to ask questions that are so hard no one can answer them, or challenging a teacher or something. That's not really what it's about, because it's really about you wanting to get out of your own doubt mass. That's what it feels like. You don't really want answers to these questions more than you want to see what's beyond them. You want to see what's beyond the confining way of experiencing reality, such that your mind is doing this all the time. Because I know your mind's not just doing this about what I say or what non-dual teachers say or whatever. I'm sure it's doing it all the time about yourself and about your life. Like that doubt mass is strong. And I know that because I've been there. Like my mind works like yours. And it used to be that confining experience, and it was heavy and really uncomfortable. And I was skeptical about everything, including stuff like this. I didn't see stuff like this, but if I did, I would have been skeptical about it. Until I was just fucking tired of suffering. Once I was tired of suffering, then I was like, okay, I'm willing to go beyond my own discernment about the big questions because I obviously don't fucking know the answer. First of all. Second of all, I was willing to go beyond my fear, through my fear. Now, which barrier emotion comes first, fear or anger, depends on the person. Doesn't matter though. Anger is a barrier emotion as well. And so when you're feeling pissed off, that's what's happening. You're pushing on that identity structure, which is good, right? Doesn't matter how you push on it, but you're confronting it. So I do want you to have satisfaction, but it's not going to be in answering these questions in the way you think it is. So to address more directly what you're talking about, when people talk about doubtlessness, or they talk about being suddenly it being very clear that there are no boundaries, physical boundaries at all. What they're saying essentially is that, that's a later realization, but an earlier realization is one about thought, essentially. And that is, what you see is that doubt, right? Which all this kind of discernment and these questions, these like skeptical questions are forms of doubt. Doubt is directly related to belief. That's what you see. And you see it so clearly. And you realize that doubt and belief were something that was like an armor you were identifying with and using to protect yourself, supposedly, from what you perceive to be otherness, right? When you see through that, you suddenly experience something that's so much more real than that it's just undeniable. Now, don't take my word for it though. You got to go there yourself. And that means you have to go through your emotional barriers, which may be fear. And at some point it will be anger and fear. So you have to go through those to discover what I'm talking about if you believe it. And you wouldn't be watching this shit unless you believed it. If you totally didn't believe this stuff, you would just turn it off. You wouldn't watch a video at all. And there are people probably most people who do that. So there's something in you that believes that there is a possibility here. But if you insist that someone explains it to you to your satisfaction before you wake up, you'll be insisting fruitlessly for a long time. It's not going to happen. No one, no matter how well they explain the shit, can actually tell you what it's like. It's just not going to happen. It's impossible. So you have to go there yourself. You have to go. You have to breach the veil of identity to know what's more real than real. And then you'll understand. You'll see that the words aren't quite right. You'll see how they could still be doubted because the words are just words. But you'll suddenly finally get it. Like, okay, now I know what they're talking about. That's what you want. And it's available. Look at the interviews I do. Look at the comments on these videos. Like, it happens. It happens a lot. More and more now. It's possible. It's possible for you. But you have to go beyond that mind of yours. That is protecting. It thinks it's protecting you. It's not, but it thinks it is. You have to go beyond it. You're not going to get satisfying answers to these questions. It's just not going to happen. Even if I answered them in the best way I possibly could, and you were kind of satisfied for the moment, the mind would reify that doubt again in a different form or a different way. You have to go beyond the veil of that doubt, identity structure. And doubt and identity are completely intertwined here. So this message is not really trying to answer your question so much as like spurring you on, saying like, for someone like you, usually that processes this way, a one-pointed approach is very helpful because it takes all that mental energy and that sort of will to know and to figure this out, and it hones it down until the mind is so concentrated that you're not constantly blown around by the wind of doubt. Right? It's kind of like you're a flag, or you're a whole bunch of flags, like all these thoughts, and the wind of doubt is just moving them this way and that way, and it's so confusing and disorienting, and you're trying to pay attention to the flags. Is that a good flag? Is that a red flag? A white flag? Good flag? Bad flag? Like, it's just so fucking confusing. When you concentrate the mind, then that wind of doubt just blows right through. It doesn't move you. You don't get distracted by those thoughts anymore. It takes effort to do that. It takes effort to concentrate the mind and the will down into one point, like moo, right? But it can be done. And then you don't have to worry. Moo is just moo. You don't have to worry about, is it no self or some self or I am self or awareness or the absolute. These are fucking words. Who cares about all that shit? Who cares about those words? Who cares? Doesn't matter. I don't care. I might use words like that on occasion to try to point someone back to their true nature. But more importantly, I want to give them a kick in the butt and say, you got to move through those fear barriers yourself. You have to breach the veil. You won't know otherwise, not in the way you really want to know. In the way you kind of want to know, with all these answers to these specific questions. Sure, you could find satisfactory answers, maybe, or whatever. Convince yourself that this is all nonsense, or convince yourself it's not nonsense. None of that's going to be satisfying. You got to breach the veil of identity, and only you can do that. Hopefully that hits the hits the point for you. And I really wish you fruition. Set yourself on fire with curiosity. I think you left another comment. I don't know if you erased it, but I read another comment, and it was about self-inquiry. And it was like, good question, really. And what you're asking is like, how can asking the question of who am I and not finding an answer come to the conclusion that there is no self there? And you're like, what the hell? Like, how is that possible? And then you ask some other questions about self-inquiry. But my answer is essentially the same as to this, and that is, you can't logically figure out where self-inquiry leads you because it's beyond logic. It just is. Can't tell you what that's like in words, really. I mean, I can try, but you have to go there. So self-inquiry, two things that are important. I mean, you could read my book if you want to see the way, the process I lay out and explain like the components of inquiry and what it is and what it's, most importantly, what it's not. But let me give you two simple approaches, two simple aspects that matter. And one is you have to do it yourself, right? Listening to other people talk about inquiry is going to do jack shit. Listening to other people tell you what they've concluded through inquiry is going to do jack shit. They'll either say, oh, I found that there was no self, and you'll be like, what? Or they'll say, I realized the I am sense, and you'll say, what? Right? Doesn't help you. You have to do it. You have to actually go through the process of inquiry, and not intellectually. You have to go through it with your whole being. You really have to. First of all. Second of all, you have to actually care about the question in a way. You have to have genuine curiosity, right? This isn't curiosity when you say, oh, how could this be? How could that be? And this person said this and that. That's more like a little bit of analysis and maybe a little bit of cynicism or something. Not cynicism, but you know what I mean. You have to be genuinely curious. And I promise you there's something you're genuinely curious about. And reading your stuff here, it's something like, the curiosity is like, how can there be something that gives me a sort of understanding beyond thought, right? Beyond all these doubts I have and all these thoughts and this logical processing I'm doing that seems so meaningful and it seems to make everything so contradictory. Don't you want to know what's beyond that? Kind of sounds like it. That's the curiosity. What is beyond that? What is beyond thought? If I stay beyond thought, meaning I go right now and I say, okay, that's the thought. That's the thought. That's another thought. The doubt that says I don't know how to do self-inquiry, that's another thought. Right? Stay in that gap. Don't start a thought. Don't activate your mind. Don't react to thoughts. If a thought appears, it appears. Don't get entangled. Stay there. How long can you stay there? What starts happening when you stay there? What do you feel? Right? Whatever thought comes up, just remember, dismiss it as a thought. Notice it, set it aside. Stay here. The curiosity is here, right? What is it that's beyond thought? Well, there's only one way you're going to find out. You got to go there. And now that you know you can go there for 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, stay there. See what happens. You will hit intense experiences. You'll hit intense sensations. The mind will make thoughts about those intense sensations. It'll try to turn you around into analysis. It'll try to turn you back onto fears, right? It'll say, oh my God, this is going to kill you. You're going to go freaking insane if you keep doing this, right? Just more thoughts. Set them aside. Keep going. Feel it. The body will feel the intensity, but those are just sensations. There's no story there. There's no narrative there. Just pure sensation. Don't stop. Stay the course. Stay with the curiosity. What's beyond all of this? That's how you do this. And if it takes you 10,000 years, it takes you 10,000 years. That's the kind of dedication that's required for this if you want to go one-pointed. That's the warrior's approach, the warrior's journey. And when you say that you're starting to get pissed off, that tells me you have some warrior energy. So utilize that energy. You can do this. Breach the veil.